All right, just a couple of quick things, and I want to thank the other council members for their questions because it helped me make some notes as well. I guess the first one is going to be on page 15. It actually references page 14 as well. On page 14, we show here that we had an excess over revenues over expenditures for 11, 12, 13, 14, and then we carry over to the general fund overview of the fund balance. And do we have an explanation of where the overage went? Because the fund balance stayed the same. However, we showed that revenues exceeded expenditures.
So if you look on page 14, you can see in fiscal year 16 that the blue, which are the expenses, were significantly more than the revenues. If you turn to page 15, here, I'll wait for him to get there. Okay, so you can see in 2016. Okay, if you can go back one more, and then we'll go to this one. Thank you. So you can see your expenditures were significantly greater than your revenues in this particular year. So if we go to the next slide, that's your fund balance. So that's what happened is, because you didn't have current operating revenues to pay for it, you dipped into the city's fund balance to cover those expenditures.
Okay, I get that, but what I'm asking is, we're at 12 or 13 million there, and it stays flat across. Wouldn't we have increased in 11, 12, and 13 because of the excess overage? Do you understand? I know that it's going to drop off, but I mean, it still has to. If you have extra money, it should go into the account. That's what I'm trying to say. So,
I'm not sure I have the information to answer
Okay.
that today, but I'll be happy to go back and get into a more granular level in like 10, 11, and 12, and get that information back to
and
you.
I mean, I'm talking about right here.
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So
You would have thought that there
you
would have been a
think that
greater.
the funds would actually increase as well across the
Yeah.
backside there too.
The city does. So all we're showing are operating expenditures, what you have to spend. There very well could have been expenditures that were made that were non-operating.
Okay.
And what we're really focusing on here is payroll, electricity, I mean, all the stuff that you need to do. So what may have happened in those years where there were overages, there may have been expenditures that were made that were not what we would consider operating expenditures. And we'll go back and pull that detail from the annual financial statements and see what expenditures may have been in those years that were not directly operating expenses.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
That's it.
All right, now page 23. This is just a question as far as if you could give me an idea on a standard that you see across the board. We're showing 71, almost 72%, and 15% property tax for the 2016 unaudited. What do you see as a standard or an average for city as far as that split is concerned?
Most cities try to target a third, a third, a third. A third from sales tax, a third from property taxes, and a third from everything else. And that gives you kind of you've heard that, the three-legged stool. It gives you, a little bit of diversification. But not every single city follows that, but in an optimal situation, you'd like to have that composition.
Okay.
The point on that, which is interesting and to think about, and the rating agencies talk about this, and we talk about this a lot, ad valorem taxes in general are much more stable. You get your taxable assessed valuation, you know your tax rate, you know your historical collection ratio. You can pretty generally budget, so you know with certainty what dollars are going to come in. Sales tax is volatile. It's volatile for every community. And so it makes it so much harder to budget when such a large component of your budget is tied to something for which you have no direct control over. So that's why either our communities that can do the third, they try, but our communities that have a larger sales tax composition, they try to offset that by having a bigger fund balance. So that allows them the ability, when there's volatility there, then they can react accordingly.
Just to comment real quick, Mayor, on if our partners in Kingsville, a lot of people compare us to Kingsville or say, why can't we be like Kingsville? If you've looked at their property tax rate, it's stayed at that high point for the simple reason they have money to be able to do that, to be able to attract business on a stable platform. And we have, the council, previous councils and city administration have always said we can help our citizens because we've got a lot of sales tax and we can lower tax rates. But it's a double-edged sword when something like this happens, that, you know, we lose that leverage. And that's why we had to do what we had to do last year, so.
I'm out of time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crisp. Ms. Moran?
So, how does having pending lawsuits affect our bond rating and our ability to borrow monies and receive grants? You heard from some of the citizens' comments that we have, the developer from the auditorium has filed a lawsuit against the city. Were you aware of that?
I'm not sure I was aware of the actual lawsuit being filed, but when we do, this is the preliminary official, this is actually the final official statement that is put together on behalf of the city every time you access the capital markets. It's a disclosure document. And we did, on page 36, in the section of litigation, and we'll make sure we get this to you. We always talk about the different lawsuits, and on this page, it does reference the developer agreement, and it said that although no suit is currently filed, but there is substantial likelihood that all disputes will not be resolved without litigation. So we didn't know, but we did try to prepare the market that that could eventually end up in litigation. What I would suggest that we do is visit with your bond counsel and ask them to review that and to determine if that can simply be covered by a note in your upcoming audit as a, litigation or post-event, or if that would be something that we would want to post onto your website as part of your continuing disclosure.
Real quickly, the EDA grant that the city received from, to help build the auditorium, to the point of 1.2 million. It was received to help build the auditorium, to keep it open and not closed. I believe last fiscal year was open, or I think this year as well, has only been open 160 days. The fact that we may be having to pay back that loan in 1.2 million, how will that impact us?
We believe that that's one of the reasons, again, why we did this strategic planning model. We know that as a council, you are going to be faced with certain choices and decisions that have to be made. And so we hoped that that tool would help you understand kind of the offset of, if you keep it open, what do things look like? If you don't, if you have grants and whatnot. So yes, ma'am, we understood that there are going to have to be some choices.
Real quickly, our financial audit of 2015 was not completed till September 2016. Are you aware of the findings that recommend that highly recommend, there was 4 findings that highly recommend that we hire a financial director?
Yes, ma'am, we really could not sell your bonds until we got the audit, and your audit and the notes are part of this disclosure document, so yes, ma'am.
So
And we made the audit available to not only the rating agencies, but also to the investment community.
So throughout here, I noticed that you do make reference to unaudited numbers. How does that impact us currently, when we are also looking at possibly looking at our 2016 budget currently not being here with us? We're looking at perhaps unaudited numbers going into fiscal year 2017, 2018.
It clearly is a concern. We put in the disclosure document that the city will work to to try to get its audit completed in 180 days. And I know that tremendous efforts have been made by your staff in getting this process to move forward quickly. It would be our suggestion, to the extent that you can, to get this one done and then try to get working on the other one so that you can put it on the same schedule. I will just tell you that it is very hard. Not every city we work with gets their audit done in 180 days. It's just.
Mandated by our local government code and charter to complete it within
But-
180 days. One last question. So in your opinion, should the city continue to focus on diversifying our sales tax base and continue to look for sales tax revenue and increase that before we look at increasing property taxes?
So I think that's really outside of my purview. I'm really a technical assistant to the city, and I think that those are policy considerations. I can help you model those two different strategies, but that's really outside of my
And the
purview.
question was based because I am looking at this big pie chart.
Mayor, I've got a couple of comments
Yes, sir.
to close, please. The questions that Councilwoman Moran, or statements that she made, have been a continuous project of this administration. We have talked about where we are in these things. The 2015 audit, a statement was made that it wasn't completed. Yes, it was. The 2016 audit, I will give a report as to where we are. And the attraction of a financial director has been something that we talked about at the last council meetings. But one of the things that hinders us from that, and luckily I was able to step into that position, is our inability to attract people because of the negativity that surrounds us. And we're working on that with the first step being taken with the Unity rally that we had. But those things are being addressed, and it's not something that has not been disclosed. This man to my left is a lawyer. He's not gonna risk his law license. I'm a professional. I'm not gonna risk that either. And these statements, the rating agencies and our auditors require us to disclose these issues. And as stated on that, the potential litigation at that time, which was potential, it hadn't been a litigation yet, was addressed, and those things will be continuing to be addressed. So I want the public to know for sure that those things are being addressed. It's not something that hadn't been or something that won't be, but the negativity that surrounds us is an issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can,
I think
can
I
I
was
just?
still within my 5
I'm
minutes.
sorry, you're out of order. No, you were already done.
I'd like to take
I
a
have
vote on that
question.
point of order. I'd like to, it was
It's
still.
a
it
point
was
of
still
order,
my-
ma'am. You don't have the floor.
May I take a vote on that?
Ms.
Mr.
Moran,
City
you don't have the
Attorney?
floor. Your time was up.
I was still within my 5 minutes. I think
There's no
you do
vote.
want to
Mr.
run
Towler,
on
can you
transparency, Ms.
say which, did she
Vanover?
have a minute left or no minutes, or can you tell
I,
us?
I was interrupted. I was still
Excuse
within
me,
my
Ms. Moran.
questioning, was I not, Mr. Towler?
You
And it's
began at, excuse me, you began at 7:55 and 40 seconds, and when the city manager started speaking, it was 8 o'clock and 50 seconds. It was 10 seconds over.
okay.
Thank you. Can I just ask, on page 38, can you tell me, so our city debt is what right now? Can you tell us the number of our city debt?
Yes, ma'am. So your debt service payments are the purple line that goes through, and I'll just come over here and point it out, because.
So $2 million, is that correct?
It's right about 2 million. It goes here, it comes down a little bit, and then it comes down, and that's where it is.
So currently, 2017, we're at $2 million in debt, and that's only because we restructured. If not, we would have been at 3.5 million in
Yes,
debt
ma'am.
currently.
More than that, yes, ma'am.
More than that.
About 3.6.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you.
a pleasure to be here, and as I mentioned, I'm happy to continue to help and be a resource and answer questions that you have.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a
Okay.
quick question. If we have questions for her, do we funnel them through y'all first? Or do we go directly to her?
Yes, I'd appreciate that. That way we can compile them and get them to her.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to agenda number 5, hear presentation from City of Alice Finance Department to receive information related to budget revisions for the City of Alice Multi-Use Center, Fund 80, and consider and act upon an ordinance adopting the City of Alice fiscal year 2016-2017 budget amendment number 2. At this time, Mr. Teller, you'll help me, everybody, for discussion. We'll have 7 minutes the first go-round, and then I'll allow for a rebuttal of 3 minutes for each council, giving them a total of 10 minutes, which is standard for Robert's rules.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Okay, I'm sorry. You were given a budget amendment for the natatorium. And the first page is a summary. The second page goes into detail, and I'd like to go into detail first in case y'all have any questions. You don't have this one? Okay, sorry. That's okay. Okay, with Josh and Taylor, we looked at the revenues first, and if you'd like, I can go one by one. Would y'all like for me to go one by one? Okay. For, based on the activities that or that they felt that we might do, we included those. The first one was the swimming lessons. We had budgeted $25,000 based on what was earned last year and what we have already collected. They decided to decrease that to give us a revised amount of $12,000. For lap swimming, we had budgeted $5,250. They decided to decrease that by $4,250, leaving a remaining budget of $1,000. Clinics, we had budgeted $5,000. We lowered that by $4,500 to give us a revised amount of $500. Water aerobics, we have budgeted $12,000. We lowered that by $4,500, and we have a revised budget of $7,500. The swim team, we have budgeted $14,140. I believe this one, the original intention was to include the school district and the summer swim team, but we split it out. So for this line item, this is actually the summer swim team. We lowered that one by $6,520 to show the $7,620 that we have already received for the year. Regional swim meets, we have budgeted $2,000. We increased that by $500 to show a revised budget of $2,500. Local swim meets, we have budgeted $2,600. We removed that. Memberships, with the amended budget, we had taken out the amount of revenue completely, but year-to-date, we had already collected $5,857, so we revised the budget to include that amount. Lifeguard certifications, we had budgeted $5,000. We removed that because we will no longer have anybody who can certify them. Certifications, we had budgeted $2,000. Again, we removed that. Regional swim meet fees, we had budgeted $8,000. We removed that. I believe because we're not going to be hosting those, correct? Is that what? Mm-hmm.
We have
Okay.
district meetings.
Swim team for the school district. Again, this is where I had originally had the $14,140 on the top, and we split it out. We increased it to $4,050, and this is the amount that we actually received from the school district for the time that they did use the natatorium. We added a cabana rental. This was something new, so we increased it to the amount of $2,880, which is the amount they felt we would receive. Movie night reservation, this is something new also, so the revised budget shows $1,500. Party rentals, we had budgeted $47,000. We decreased it by $27,000 to show a revised budget of $20,000. Water park admissions, we had budgeted $80,000. We decreased it by $30,000 to show a revised budget of $50,000. The recreational swim, we had budgeted $20,000. We decreased that by 10,000 to give us a revised budget of 10,000. Promotions/season passes, we budgeted 10,000. We removed 5,000 to give us a revised budget of 5,000. Corporate advertisements, we had removed the total amount with the first budget amendment, but I revised it to show what we had received year to date, and that was $11,578. The hotel motel tax code 351, we had budgeted 70,000. I removed 69,000 to the revised budget of 1,000. Concessions, this was something new that they did, and the 2,200 that I have put in the revised budget is something that they've actually received. Food vendors, this was an idea that they had with the original adopted budget for $12,000. We removed that. Vending machines, we budgeted 6,000. We decreased that by 4,000 for a revised budget of $2,000. And cooler fees, this was something new also, so we added $5,000. The revised budget of revenue for the natatorium is now at $152,185. Do I have any questions on the revenues?
Yes, I have a question. Vanessa, who authorized all this for the decreases and all that?
Well, this was something that Taylor and Josh,
Okay, put Joshua on the, there.
Mr. Teller, can I recommend that she can take her 7 minutes now?
Well, I'll keep time of, if she wants to use part of it now, I will keep a record of how
Okay,
much she uses.
Perfect.
Okay, Joshua,
I have a question to Mr. Towler.
Yes.
Since when did we pass a policy, the council? I know there was an attempt by you to present something where we would conduct the meetings. This is the first I'm aware of us
it's a
being
word time for
timed.
everything.
So we refer back to standard Roberts rules, and if you look it up, that's what it is, because there is no policy
We
in
have no
place.
adopted standard policy.
We have no adopted policy.
Exactly.
So where did council approve timing ourselves and how to conduct our meetings?
It hasn't been done yet.
It's
So
at
then
the
why are
discretion
we
of the mayor to
conducting our
conduct
meeting?
the meeting the way I want
council
to.
votes.
Mr. Teller,
the
is that not
policy.
correct? Roberts rules has
We have
a
not
10-minute?
adopted Robert's Rules of
have
Order.
not adopted Robert rules.
Can you clarify
Mr.
that?
Towler,
for me?
you have, this
Okay.
is
You
something
let him
that's
talk?
not
You're asking him a
TOMA.
question.
And I'm waiting for an answer.
I try not to talk when you're speaking.
I know, but,
Councilman. I try not to
Someone
talk
else?
when anyone else is speaking.
and I understand. So,
We have not adopted any rules. The two rules that we have are both from the charter. One says the mayor presides at the meeting, but does
What
not say
section, sir?
what,
It's right here, tell me.
but there is no definition of what presides means.
what section?
17.
Section 17?
There is no definition precisely of what preside means.
So,
Again, I have tried for months to get some hard, fast rules adopted. It hasn't happened yet.
Okay, David, we haven't been here for months. We've only been here
Oh, no,
1
no,
month.
no. There was a prior council. I have been here for a year and a half.
so until then, we have no adopted policies of how to conduct our meetings,
So I preside over the meeting.
This is the same situation we
but
dealt
we
with
don't
the
get,
last council.
the council has,
That I got in trouble
and
for.
you can correct me if wrong, the local government code says the council is allowed to speak. And I believe, Ms. Vanover, you would agree that in the spirit of transparency, the public has a right to know what is going on, and the only way we can do that is if we ask questions.
And not
And you have 10 minutes.
No, we don't
As
have-
per standard Roberts Rules of
We
Order.
have not
we have
adopted
not
that.
adopted.
It's a standard for every, and there is something written for it.
Then
Mr.
if we're
Teller.
going to adopt that, then I will also go point of order and ask for a vote to continue my discussion on an agenda item, if we're going to use that argument.
In 1979, this council said Robert's rules would be used as a guide, but did not say
Exactly.
that they would be, there's been nothing other than that. And as
Exactly.
a guide doesn't mean that they're going to apply in every case.
So then it stands to reason if we're going to be timed, then it stands to reason if we're going to perceive adopting Robert's Rules of Order, then I can ask for a point of order and take a vote to allow me to continue my agenda items, correct?
Which-
And I have those here with me if you'd like to take a look at those.
No, we,
Agenda item are we
Well,
talking about?
I asked for a point of order, I was
I
interrupted.
understand, but you're asking about
Well,
continuing with an agenda item.
I've got
I'm
a
not
couple
sure.
of agenda items were coming up.
This-
I just want to,
this
no, I've got some future ones as well, and this one as well. So, again, the question is,
The answer is the same. We have not formally adopted any specific rules of order. The charter says the mayor presides, but it doesn't say what that means with any specificity.
yes. And
And
the
going
local
back to
government code allows us to
1977.
ask questions
The,
without any time limits unless we have a procedural policy in place.
there are nothing in the local government code that puts time limits.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I would
So we
I would
don't-
ask our city attorney to then
In other
ask
words,
us
So
to
then
be
you-
allowed to pursue our line of questioning. The public has a right to know. We have several questions on some agenda items.
and we cannot do them in
I-
7 minutes.
Like to be able to express our freedom of expression. We don't think we should have our rights trampled, especially if we have no policy in place.
I can only advise, I cannot order or rule.
Okay, so your
Okay.
advice is?
My advice is that we adopt some rules,
Thank you. And until then?
and until then,
There's none.
we don't have
Okay.
any, and there is
Until then, we spend taxpayers' money for 11 hours in a meeting to hear one person speak. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Towler?
No, I would
No.
hope that doesn't happen.
Well, it has. I'm just concerned for our taxpayers and, because they're paying you by the hour.
Yes.
Right? And we are paying city staff by the hour. And so the taxpayers are paying for this meeting. And so I don't understand, if you've done your homework, we've all gotten this before. And there is.
May I speak when
Can I
you're
finish?
done?
Hang on. Thank you, yes, ma'am. My point is, we need to consider those two things, and there is something that states that when in doubt, you go back to Robert's Rules, and that's written since it's in my office, if you'd like me to get it.
There was a 1979 resolution that said Roberts were a guide, but did
Right.
not formally adopt them.
Right.
Right. But, so it's a guide for me to follow, since nobody's ever said, this is what you do, correct?
Well, we're saying it now.
We're saying it now.
Well, you would have
Would
to
you like
put it
to
on an
take a vote?
agenda. You would have to put it on an agenda, and that's what he gave us last time,
May
to
we
put on
move
the
on?
agenda.
Okay, we're wasting
Ms. Cynthia,
time.
would you like to speak?
Yes. I would like, because this is the second time it's been mentioned, we do not waste time on,
Public's right to
we
know.
had a whole lot that one day. So there was a lot of details that needed to be discussed and had to go over, that were presented. So I don't appreciate the comment that I am wasting taxpayers' money, because I would never do that. I would never
I
do
feel
that.
that way, though. Order, or y'all will be removed. Thank you.
No, this is not a courtroom. This is not a
Where's
courtroom.
Rex?
Let's go ahead and.
Where's Rex?
Okay.
This is not a courtroom.
Are you asking
there's
to
order.
remove the public,
Are you-
Ms. Vanover?
Is that what you're doing? Huh?
Okay, so is this where we just adjourn, since we don't
I
have
hope not.
Oh,
professional?
you have to take a vote on that.
If I may
Rex
have,
is
Okay,
out
then
there.
can we move on?
Rex is not gonna scare us. He's standing over there.
Let's, please, I beg, let's move on.
and I agree, if we can just move forward
There's
and,
Rex
and
right
and
there.
conduct our
Ms.
business.
Johnson.
We're
Trying
here.
to.
Yes, if
Yes,
we can
thank you,
conduct our
Rex, for
business
coming
and
on.
let the staff go ahead, ma'am.
Joshua, please
Thank you.
proceed with your
Good
presentation.
evening, Mayor and Council. Ms. Garza, you had some questions?
Yes, I even forgot what the questions were.
It was about the,
I forgot.
you had questions on the revenue.
On the what?
The revenue adjustments?
Yes, okay, exactly, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, where did you get this numbers? Who gave you permission to do this?
Well, we
Who
did-
informed you?
The numbers came from the general ledger for the account, for
Okay.
for the multi-use complex, which is account 80. So we meaning Taylor, myself, and Ms. Vanessa, the general ledgers for 2016 and 2017 to date on what revenues were actually made. Because in the proposals we were given last council meeting, we were going to recommend a seasonal operation based on roughly 5 or 6 months. Now, based on that and what we have, what we actually made from last season, that's what we're basing those revenue adjustments on, from the top down.
Okay.
Okay, who proposed this and the breakdown of each thing? Again,
Yes,
it was the
ma'am.
three of y'all?
It was the three of us.
Using historical data, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir, using the general ledgers straight from our software system,
Thank you.
Springboard.
Okay. Ms. Garza, any more questions?
No, I'll be wasting their time.
Okay. Ms. Carrasco, any other questions?
No.
Okay. Mr. Crisp?
I just wanted to ask a few things here. Which proposal plan of the four presented did you kind of use? Well, my question kind of falls under expenses, but it's a little bit of both with revenue and expense. Did you actually use for this?
The closest to what Vanessa has in your agenda packet, which I don't have, was proposal number 3, the closest to that.
We didn't. We didn't get the proposal.
And then I also see in here that there were some revenues that fall under
Okay.
the water park. And during the last council meeting, the proposal, or the motion was made to only open the swimming pool. So we didn't adjust the bid proposal for that?
It's staff hope that the water park will resume operations this season.
Okay,
Okay. You're done, Mr. Crisp?
that's it.
Okay. Ms. Moran?
So this proposed amendment includes seasonal operation for both the natatorium and the leisure pool?
Yes, ma'am, I believe
Okay.
Vanessa, was there a notation on the
Yes,
bottom?
it does.
For the season?
It does? Okay.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Flores, you base these on historical data. Your revenue for the corporate advertisements and seasons passes, you reduced those, and your reason for that was?
Taylor and I have wanted to go from to season passes on that, and we wanted to look at what we did last year with memberships, combining also with a revenue item that was called promotions. And based on that information, we talked about and came to that number.
Okay, it's my understanding that you decreased it because we're looking at what actually came in, historical data. Which is it?
I mean, we did decrease the memberships and the corporate advertisements
Based on the
based on
revenue
what we've actually
received. Okay, so would it stand to reason then that it is my understanding that corporate advertisement and promotions, there are some outstanding that were never billed or
We
collected?
have some corporate still outstanding. Vanessa, what was the total?
I don't have that with me, but that would be an expense when we actually
No,
refund
I'm
them.
saying there was revenue that was pledged, but we never
Yes.
went out to collect it. So that, had we done that, had we, and
Well,
because
on
we don't
the-
have a separate utility fund, when someone pledges or makes payments in installments, it would stand to reason we should have a separate billing system. Did we ever go out and collect on these promotions, season passes, and corporate advertisements?
The promotion season passes, those were paid upfront.
Okay, what about the corporate advertisements?
Those were being billed. Some of them did have different things. Some of them paid upfront. Some of them wanted to be paid quarterly. Some of them wanted monthly, and those were being billed.
And so we followed through on all of those.
Yes.
Can you please provide me, Mr. Jocelyn, that we followed through on collecting what was pledged on both the promotions and corporate advertisements? One other question on the revenue, cooler fees. I didn't see that in the adopted budget. Did we add that in there?
That was something new, the cooler fees.
That's something new, so are we creating a new budget here or an adopted budget and amending it? Because cooler fees is not on the adopted 2016, 2017 budget.
We're revising it
So we're revising it, okay.
to add it.
What are the basis of your figures? What did you all use to come up with these revenue numbers? Did you do head counts? Did you estimate the, and are you using unaudited numbers
On what? Sorry.
on your revenue? You project revenue, but what are your numbers that you're projecting them off of?
We were using the trial balance from last year.
Did you ever use the plan that was adopted?
That was the original adopted budget, I believe, in 2015.
So, this is the adopted budget, the plan, and the estimated annual operating budget that's suggested is between 307 to 419,000. So would you say that we're in between here? And this is an estimated study and feasibility study that was done for the nadatorium that the city the previous council adopted, correct?
Those questions should be directed to
Okay,
myself.
correct.
I just want to make sure
I'm
that
sorry,
that
staff
we
is
don't
doing the
interrogate our employees.
Well, they're
that
doing
we
the
ask-
presentation.
They're doing
that
the
we ask-
presentation.
I know,
We have
I know,
the-
but
the-
it seems that way, ma'am. So one of the things that I
Mr.
don't.
Jocelyn, I wouldn't appreciate you interrupting me.
Well, I'm not. I'm
You'll
trying to help you
have the
answer.
opportunity to ask your questions.
Yeah, I'm trying to help you answer the question.
I appreciate
ma'am.
that,
You know,
but
that's-
I am
that's-
asking these questions because the public has a right to know. And wouldn't you agree, Mr. Jocelyn and
Oh, of
Mayor,
course,
that-
ma'am, of course.
that
This
we-
is our job
that
to.
we have the right to let the public know through transparency and accountability what we're doing here?
That's correct.
Okay, one other thing to finish up this budget. Why are we still carrying this 123,513, which I still don't have all the numbers to see what it was expensed to. This is a 2015, 2016 expenditures for a Louis Lopez cleaning contract, a Josh Flores professional contract, and hiring of Mr. Rudy Leal. Were these appropriated prior to the expenditures being encumbered?
Yes, they were, ma'am.
They were?
Okay. And one of the things is.
Okay, I'll just ask you for them
I
later.
want to answer now, if I may.
Absolutely, sir. You have the floor.
Here we are again on the same footing.
Exactly.
Councilwoman Moran, and I respectfully tell you that that's inappropriate on your line of questioning, okay? I understand you've been here 1 month, and you're looking at a study that was done way prior, and that study was done in the height of the Eagle Ford and the activity and stuff like that. So if one of the things that I ask, and I know we're going to get to some agenda items that were placed on here, these things are easily addressed to the city manager to say,
Sure.
I want to know where these are, so we can come up here and present in a professional manner to our citizens. Okay?
So-
Instead of attacking
Oh, no,
our
no. Yeah.
our
I'm
staff. One
merely
of the things-
asking questions that
Okay.
the
You don't have
public
the
has a
floor, Ms.
right to
Moran.
know.
Okay, well, one of the things that I want to make sure is according to the operating procedures of the city of Alice, agenda items are required to be submitted by Wednesday at noon, the week before the council meeting.
So
Not
when-
at
Ms.
the
Moran, you don't
day.
have the
When
floor.
we ask
Ms.
for
Moran, you don't
required, is
have the
there a
floor.
policy?
Ms. Moran, what
This
part
is
of
my agenda
procedure
item.
don't you understand?
I'll
He
take
is
a vote on
speaking,
it.
he has the
Staff,
floor, you don't
step down, please.
speak.
I have this agenda
You don't
item.
speak when somebody's speaking.
I
Can
will
we at
take a
least follow
vote.
that rule?
Well, he spoke
Or
when
can you
I
not
was
be that,
speaking.
can you not understand at least that part of
I think I do, Ms.
order?
Vanover.
We have
This
business.
is all I'm
I'm
wondering.
trying to ask some
Please,
questions.
we have
When
business
he
to take care of.
speaks, you stop
I'm trying to
until
ask
you
some-
have the floor.
Well, then I would ask that you extend the same
Andy.
courtesy.
Andy,
I do.
Can I say something?
Of course, ma'am,
Rex.
of course.
Yes, ma'am.
Come here.
Go ahead, ma'am.
This is totally out of order.
Okay, so can I
It's not
direct
on the agenda,
questions?
whatever
Yes,
she
ma'am,
says.
I'm up here now.
Okay, thank you.
I want him out of here.
What young man?
So,
At the door.
um,
Okay, I want him out of here.
Why would you do that?
can you?
All right,
ex-
hold on one second. I'm trying to
Hold
find
on,
out what's going on right
This
here.
is not correct.
She's asking,
Mr. Tyler.
does the gentleman taking,
No, they have the
That
right
is-
to be able to
that is
videotape.
These-
expressly authorized under the charter and under the open
Yeah,
meetings
have
act.
and
the
it's
right.
on Channel
I thought
5.
they-
We cannot interfere with that.
Yeah.
I thought somebody said a while ago that they couldn't take pictures.
They have the
No.
right.
The Open Meetings Act allows photographs, audio recordings, and video recordings,
So,
and we cannot interfere with it.
okay, so I think Mr. Jocelyn agreed that I could direct the questions to
Well,
him.
ma'am, I'm here. I'm
Okay,
here for the
thank you,
council,
Mr.
yes.
Jocelyn, I appreciate that. So, if we were to expense out or take away this 123,513, the proposed budget amendment would then be the expenditure of 153,055.54, correct?
That's correct.
So that is the amended budget that we're looking for.
And you are correct. One of the things that we have done since I've taken over as the city manager is try to make each department self-sufficient, right? So if you see a negative number under the natatorium, this is the first a good year that we'll have. If the department, like our golf, we talked about the golf course, is unable to make that, where does that money come from? The general fund, right? And what we're rated on is how much funds are in our general fund to be able to survive a catastrophe, whether it be a hurricane, whether it be something that we have to operate and pay our employees and conduct business without collecting any money. No, not grant money, man, is general fund money, what's in our bank account right now. One of the things that we're trying to do, and this council is readily apt to do that too, is make every department self-sufficient, right? Because we can't keep tapping into our general fund to offset. But you are correct. One of the things that was shown is a negative in the fund balance of the natatorium because it's only been in operation. We had a summer season and now we're here. The previous council said no general fund money. Okay? So there's a negative there. And if we're gonna change that, great. It's up to this council to do as they so choose, direct city staff, and we'll accomplish that. We move forward and open the natatorium for the summer swim team on Monday as directed. We signed an agreement with them. And now we have how many lifeguards? And I know it's still on budgeting, so we're good. How many lifeguards we are ready to open? So we're moving forward. Go ahead, ma'am.
I think that's on an agenda item that we can.
Well, it's
cover.
budgeting, ma'am.
Yeah.
It's budgeting, so. But yes,
Date.
we'll go ahead and do that, but.
I have just a
Go ahead,
couple of more
ma'am.
comments and then I'm done, if that's okay. So, the natatorium and the leisure pool have the potential to be economic generators for sales tax revenue that we heard a presentation saying are very important for us to look at generating. And the other thing is, what is the total budget for the city of Alice?
Currently, it's 22 million, and I don't have it in front of me.
So-
With the cuts that we made of, as you saw on the financial presentation, where the city was operating a deficit of 5.4. In addition, the first year that we got here, we cut that. So we went from a $28 million budget to a $22 million, and we cut personnel.
Great.
So that's where we're at.
Thank you. We appreciate you
Yes,
doing
ma'am.
your hard work on that.
Andy, may I say
Just one
something, please?
comment.
Still has the floor. Ms. Garza.
In doing the math, and you're really almost right on it, $22 million budget for the city, operating budget for the city of Alice. I'd like to share this with the public. The natatorium leisure pool is only 0.6% of 1% of the city's budget. So please keep that in mind when people talk about it being increasing our taxes or, whatever else you hear out there. It is only 0.6% or 1% of our $22 million operating budget. Thank you.
Ms. Garza, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a question, Andy. We've been here 1 month.
Yes, ma'am.
4 weeks. We didn't have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with this pool when it was built. It could have been stopped 2 years ago when they were gonna build it. Because pretty boy, what was his name, Noel?
No personal attacks. I'm sorry.
I'm asking,
It's out of order.
don't you interrupt me.
Personal attacks.
I was gonna ask Noel because I forgot the name of the guy.
The previous city manager.
Yes, this previous city manager. And why didn't Newell stop this when the pool was being, but because it was a city manager that Newell wanted here.
Okay, I'm asking for the question.
And now we're having the burden of us, no.
Asking for the question, Tyler.
What's that?
Well,
I'm asking for the
still
question.
talking.
Because it's not relevant to
I think
what,
she's
what's on the
asking
agenda.
why was it not stopped then?
Why
Was that your
wasn't it
question?
stopped? Don't
Mr.
interrupt me.
Towler,
It has, we are discussing, under the notice, budget revisions for the future operations
Exactly.
of this facility. And we need to focus on budget revisions and, rather than what's happened in the past. I
Yeah,
understand the
David,
concern.
we're having to put up with all this and all these parents out here when we didn't have nothing. We're being recalled because of the swimming pool.
We're not going to be talking about the recall. That's not,
well,
on the- what we need to talk about is how to go forward with the budget for the Alice Multi-Use Complex.
thank you. Okay. Mr. Jocelyn?
No, ma'am, I'm available for any questions, and that's the agenda
We
item.
get stopped for asking questions. So what do? Raise our hands?
If they're directed at the agenda, then you're
Oh,
fine.
Jolene, you don't even know about the agenda.
Ms. Garza, you're so unprofessional.
She doesn't even know about the agenda.
That's so sad that you're so. Okay, next. So I'm calling for a motion.
For what?
Well,
For
we're
what?
discussing. Nobody has any more discussion. All the time is yours. Discuss, ask questions.
We're asking questions and you stop us.
I believe this is not a motion
Ask a
item.
question.
I think you called for a motion. This is,
Does say consider and act upon.
It
Consider
says-
and act upon. Ms. Moran,
this was,
would
again.
you like to read it?
Again?
Consider and act
Yolanda,
upon?
read it.
I'll read it, but I'd like to point out, again, Mr. Towler, I thought you were going to address this. My agenda item as submitted was changed, and I brought that to your attention.
It was changed by you after I made this suggestion, Councilperson.
I did not submit this. I submitted it as a
This
This is not her-
presentation.
This isn't
But
her agenda item.
nevertheless,
It's
I-
No.
further
Oh,
in
I'm
the-
sorry.
This is
Andy's.
Andy's
This is Andy's
agenda item.
Not your agenda item.
Okay, thank you. I'll make a motion that we adopt the revised budget amendment to reflect the budget of $153,055 deficiency by zeroing out the 123,513 that has been carried over. And so our budget would be,
Where does that money come from if you just
Actually,
zero it out?
I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Moran, what that is the budget deficit from prior years. That
Yes.
is and we can't zero it out.
Um,
It is the net operating results from prior years.
I believe that the charter says differently. And Ms. Vanessa, did you bring back, were you able to talk to our CPA? Do you have my page that you took?
What CPA is that?
Okay. Where we, I think we have our current CPA that's doing our audit.
The lady that was here? Amber.
So, where it calls that we close out all year end, zero out all year end. So again, I asked the question, and I believe Mr. Jocelyn agreed that we could amend that to take out the 123,513.
But if our bank
So
account is
then,
negative, you can't just say your bank account's not negative anymore, just because you say it.
I don't believe that's what I'm saying, Mr. Chris. Yes.
How's that out of order? Make
Because
it same
I
the same
have-
way you are.
I believe I was speaking.
If it may help the council, I did speak with our financial advisor. This is, the negative effect that you're talking about has been a practice here at the city on anything other than the general fund. If the council so wishes that we zero that out through general fund money, then we'll take that as a motion. We will research the matter, and if anything changes, we can bring it back. What we need is a budget amendment to be able to operate, if
Yes.
it's what you so wish.
If, in order to zero it out, there would have to be a transfer from the general fund of
Understand.
that amount into
Yes.
this fund, Fund 80.
And
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Into Fund 80. You would have, the budget amendment would have to authorize transfer of general funds of that amount into this fund to zero it out.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Andy,
Pete, you have the floor.
Let me,
Quick question on that. Where would we get that money?
The reserves,
The reserves?
yes.
So
Fund
we would just be
balance.
adding to our deficit
From
again
fund balance.
for the budget for the annual year.
Okay.
again, the motion is to adopt the revised budget amendment to reflect the 153,055 deficiency as opposed to the projected ending fund balance of 276,568.54, with the 123,513 being transferred. Is it transferred out?
Transferred from fund balance,
Transferred from fund balance to
Out
the
of
general
fund
revenue.
into the multi-use complex fund.
May I have
Yes.
discussion, or
Yes, ma'am.
does there have to be a second?
There has to be a second, and then we move on to discussion. So, do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay, so now we open up for discussion. Ms. Carrasco, you
I
have the
would,
floor.
I have a question. On this, adopting the budget as presented versus what Mrs. Moran is recommending, can you get me some
She
feedback
wants
on
to,
that?
she wants to zero out what's still.
I understand that part. My question to you is more, the effects. What is your opinion, your recommendation, is what I want?
You don't want to know my opinion.
Oh,
Yes, we do.
I
I
really,
don't have an opinion. My job is to do as the council directs. We had a financial advisor that presented where we are, and my goal, and these two ladies' goal, is to add to our fund balance, not take from it.
Right.
But if the council wishes to, this is where I'm at right now, is we'll open the facility, we'll make it as successful as possible.
That's right.
We're gonna have budget workshops from here till then, but if you're asking me my recommendation, I don't want a penny touch from the fund balance, but that's not up to me, that's up to you.
I'm just trying to,
So would that go the same then, Mr. Jocelyn, not to take from the general revenue to,
For golf courses, for anything.
thank
And
you.
that
Yes.
includes police department.
Because that has been the practice, correct?
Those things are,
Yeah.
our
Fire
PD,
department.
no,
Yeah,
listen
no.
to me, please. Our PD, our fire, the administration, those are general fund automatically.
That's right.
That's where that is.
That's right.
But our golf course, our natatorium, our airport, those are funds on their own.
The
If
library.
they can't make it, then we have to pay. We're trying to get to that point
Yes,
every
exactly.
single day, but we're not there yet.
And we fund the golf course, how much?
I don't know the figures. Do you have the figures
I
of
think
that?
there's a.
50,000? 50,000? And we fund the natatorium from the chamber, how much
In the chamber?
last year?
On the kiosk, you're talking about 50, over 50,000.
Over 50,000? So it's being subsidized the same as the golf course. So now we're asking for another 150,000 from the general fund, plus wiping out $123,000 of debt in this fund from the general fund.
I'm sorry, I don't see how saying the hotel motel tax funds and being subsidizes the pool. That would be considered revenue, as is posted, Mr. Chris, as revenue here. If you'll look at the budget, that kiosk is considered revenue. So we're not subsidizing that amount.
What do the golf course fund transfers go into the golf course as interfund transfers? Revenue?
Yes.
On the revenues? Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
What is the current deficiency at the golf course? Do you know, Mr.?
Deficiency is.
I think
in
it's
what?
looking at deficiency when we looked at the budget. Let me see where my budget is.
To look at financials.
We're looking at a deficiency in that as well, correct? That we'll have to subsidize from the general fund?
I don't have it with me.
You don't have it with you? I have it. I'll look it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to make a recommendation or a motion
You still have a motion and a second. We'd have to address that before we move forward.
We have to address that,
Well, you
okay.
can recommend a.
Recommend to
You
amend the
can
motion.
Amend the
Amend
motion.
the motion.
You can ask for an amendment, and
Amend
the one who made the motion will have to allow the amendment.
I would like to amend the motion that we adopt the proposed or the budget presented to us as is and carry it forward.
Andy, I got another question for you real quick.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
And
Mr.
Councilman Chris,
Yeah.
but we've had.
We need a
well,
second.
we need a motion.
We need a
Let's-
second
Let's
for
dispose of
motion.
that first.
Okay, got you.
Sorry, I'm just in awe. I'd like to have a second to Ms. Carrasco's motion.
Well, actually,
All right, she
consent
needs-
I mean,
of,
the amendment, she needs to
Ms.
consent.
Moran.
Ms. Moran, would you consent to Ms. Carrasco's amendment to your motion?
May I ask the question as to, and your reasoning to adopt the projected ending fund balance of 276,568 as opposed to the revised 153,000 would be why?
It concerns me to pull money from our general fund in our current situation. And I would maybe I'm not understanding this properly, but I just don't want to pull from our general fund. And carrying it over, I understand, we're gonna end up having to address this, but I feel if we open the facility and we're able to generate some revenue, we wouldn't have to pull as much out. And correct me if I'm incorrect in that.
So your amended motion is to continue to carry an unaudited number of 123,513?
actually, that's the audited number. That's the only audited number we have.
Was this audited or unaudited? Is this a 2016
Oh, I'm sorry,
expense?
you're right,
Yeah.
that's 2016.
Thank
It's
you.
not audited yet, correct. But that will happen fairly soon.
Would this be the same then would we be able to explore this, Mr. Towler, for all the other funds that get subsidized from the general fund?
Yes, to, whether that part of your motion is passed tonight or not passed tonight, nothing is going to change. It's not, we have a combined cash account. All of the money is in one bank account. They're not going to carve off $123,000 and put it into a different bank account somewhere. It is a bookkeeping entry only.
Just gonna make this
And
look better.
Yes.
when you have a general fund balance.
Right.
We also have various other fund balances. When you get down to the bottom line, it will be a net zero, because we will be decreasing general fund, increasing this fund. But the net on our combined fund balance at the bottom line will be the same.
And do I understand, Mr. Jocelyn, that if we have unencumbered monies from other funds, that we can move funds around to cover any of our deficiencies?
Yes,
In any
ma'am.
of the other funds? So there's a propensal possibility that that would happen with this 123,000?
Everything's
Instead of hitting
possible.
the general
Everything's
revenue
possible,
fund?
yes.
Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Did that answer your question, Cynthia? Because we can move monies around from other funds that have unencumbered, that don't have any unencumbered balances, where you have an excess of monies from some other funds, that at the end of the fiscal year, correct, Mr. Jocelyn?
Yes,
We
ma'am.
can,
If,
by the 15th of September?
yes, ma'am. And you're speaking, so if we may move on Ms. Carrasco's motion to adopt the budget as is, as we have more time to go through it, we may be able to come back. And that's why we started doing the quarterly budget amendments, to be able to properly monitor our funds instead of waiting a whole year. So if the mayor and the council so wish to approve Ms. Carrasco's motion, I believe that's the best way that we can go.
Well, my concern is that we continue to show heavy expenditure balance on the nadatorium, when in reality, that is not a true, correct, accurate number.
But it's not an expenditure balance, it's just a,
It is, it says projected ending fund balance.
that's not an expense
If we don't
balance,
take out the
that's just a
123.
balance.
That's the total excess revenues over expenditures, Mr. Crisp.
Yeah, and, okay, if you have
So-
different business divisions, and one of them's losing money, you don't just wipe it out at the end of every fiscal year and say, oh, we're gonna reset the clock for that one, and hopefully it does better next year. You need to know how your division does
Yeah, that
throughout
kind-
the life of the division,
that-
and this is basically a division of a business.
I
So you
think
don't
this
wipe out that
rationale
debt.
goes back to, I believe, Mr. Flores, the proposal for that Plan 3, which projected a revenue for all 4 plans staying constant.
No, they
Ms.
weren't.
Moran, can I ask what you're looking
Sorry.
at? What is it that you're looking at? Where are you getting your numbers from?
The same thing that you have on your agenda.
They were all different. All 4 plants had a different expense
Right,
and
no,
revenue.
they didn't.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't. Well, I'm not going to argue that point.
There's printouts.
She's talking about revenue, not
Yeah, I'm
the
talking about
expense.
the revenue, not expense. It stayed constant. I don't know how a business owner
I don't have it.
would show a, okay, so let's go back to where we're at in our motion,
Is
right?
whether or not you want to allow amendment of your motion.
I'm, no.
Then in that case, you
My
continue
concern-
deliberation on the motion as is.
And again, I stated my concerns being we continue to show an expenditure far too long on this auditorium. It's time to correct it as it should be.
May I discuss again?
Go ahead.
So this money would come from this, what is your number that you're saying, Ms. Moran?
123.
123,513?
Yeah, those were
Mr.
expenditures that were
Jocelyn.
not appropriated for the Louis Lopez contract, Josh Flores professional services, and I believe Mr. Rudy Leal started way before the swimming pool was opened, and they were incurring expenses that were not appropriated. I don't think it's fair for the auditorium, the Alice multi-use complex to continue to carry those unappropriated funds at that time.
It's dangerous.
May I speak?
Yes, ma'am. You have the floor, Ms. Carrasco.
Okay. I appreciate and I understand that you don't want to carry this over, but I really feel in order to move forward and get this going, that we adopt it as presented, and then we can revisit this through an amendment. So, is that correct, Mr. Talbot?
That is correct.
Yes.
It can
Through
be
the
done tonight,
quarterly?
it could be done anytime
Well-
by the end of the year.
I believe
After
that's what
budget.
this is it's a budget amendment.
Yes, and it can be done
But why
tonight,
can't
or
we
it can
take
be
care of
done
it
later
now?
this year. That's for you to decide, not me.
Okay, so I think we can take a motion on.
So,
yeah.
Mr. Jocelyn,
Vote
where
on
would
this?
this, can you reiterate where this money would come from? This entire amount, where would we have to?
Any losses that we have, ma'am, come out of fund balance.
And can you express exactly what departments will be hit with this action?
It comes out of our fund balance, the entire city is affected.
The entire city is affected. Police, fire, city employees, administration. Am I correct?
It comes out of fund balance, and again, it's a broad statement. There's some statements, and I've got this because I can't always be, it gets me in trouble, but some statements that were made. The bottom line is, we've given you a budget up to the point of when we start working on our next budget. This is where we see things. The pool may do great, the pool may not do as good, but that's how it is in city government, municipal government expenses. We look at that, and that's why we try to amend as we go. To say expenses are because this or that, that's a pretty incorrect statement. But it's everybody's opinion on where they think expenses came from, so. Our goal as city staff is to move the city forward in a unified manner with the council, and that's why we prepared this to be able to accomplish what you directed us to do the last go-around.
Does the city have a contingent appropriation fund?
Our fund balance, you're talking about?
Is it, or is it the fund reserves?
It's fund balance. The city's always had just, this is where our fund balance, and like we talked about, it was 17 million And because people didn't want to change the budget as we went, now we're at a 3, depending on where we are when we get the final audit, which is coming.
And I only ask because in our charter, it calls for a contingent appropriations fund, section 55.
It allows a contingency of up to 3%.
Yes, sir.
But it doesn't require it.
Right.
And to my knowledge, we have not been budgeting a undesignated contingency fund on any of our budgets for as long as,
They should have done it when they had money. We don't have money now to do that.
No, he's in Germany.
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay, any more discussion? Any more questions? Questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
If this dies on the floor, we can make another motion, right? We're not gonna have that same thing, this is my agenda item, this is this. We can make another motion thereafter, correct?
if this motion does not pass, then the floor is open to additional motions.
Thank you.
If my motion doesn't pass,
Yes.
If the one that's on the floor,
On the
which is
floor.
mine.
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought I had
So-
already seconded.
That
It
is-
has
You
been
did, ma'am.
seconded.
You did.
It needs to be
It goes
voted
to
on once
discussion
deliberation
after
is
it's
in there.
seconded. That's, okay, so Ms. Moran, would you like to repeat your motion, and then that way we can,
I think
Put
I've
it to-
already repeated
well, so that we can
Just take a vote.
it.
take a vote? Okay, so take a vote.
Let's move on.
We can't remember the motion, right? So let's take a vote, all in favor?
I can restate it if you'd like.
Thank you, I would like you to.
And Ms. Moran, you can tell me if I'm not stating this right, but my understanding of the motion was that we approve the budget amendment that was attached to your council packet, plus an additional interfund transfer of $123,513 from the general fund.
Which gives us an
Not
ending.
general fund, ma'am. That's our fund balance.
Fund balance. Well, it's
Of
a
the
general
general
fund
fund.
transfer.
But it's
General
fund
fund.
balance. It's not the general
But
fund.
The general fund
That-
with, then give me the ending. Balance.
it would give, based on these numbers, an ending fund balance of $153,055.54 in the red.
So.
Yes, sir.
Just one more quick question. So right now, this vote is asking our general fund, our fund balance, to fund total $276,000. It's the same thing. It's still asking for that, because it's either gonna come out of our general fund or it's gonna come out of our fund balance. That's what this vote is asking for right now.
No, that's not what it's asking for. That's
That's
your
the bottom
assumption.
line.
It is a bookkeeping entry. It is not a transfer of actual
Thank you.
cash. It is a bookkeeping entry.
It's just,
Okay, so do I get a second?
We already had one.
I mean, a vote,
I've already done it.
but we
Yes.
went to amend and it didn't. Okay, so all in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed, say nay.
nay.
Okay, so I get to break the tie, nay.
Actually,
I don't think
There was
this,
two,
no.
there was two
Huh?
nays.
What did you,
She's, yeah,
what did you do?
I'm gonna stay nay right now. I just, I don't feel comfortable.
if
Nay.
Okay, so she said nay.
her vote was a nay, then there is a tie.
No.
Yes,
you
she said
abstained.
She said nay.
No, I said nay.
Oh,
Yeah. I
Then
said,
there is
So
a tie,
there's-
and Mayor, it's your call to,
Nay.
the floor is now open to additional
Mm-hmm.
motions
Okay.
while we're on this agenda item.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the budget as presented, so that we can move forward and we can open our pool and not, or multi-use complex.
Okay,
The budget as presented.
do I get a second?
I second that.
Okay, discussion, any questions?
Right now, we need a budget in order to operate, correct?
Of
Yes.
course, yes, sir.
We have a budget correction. We're revising, amending it.
Well, the budget
Correct.
removed
Well,
everything.
actually,
We're
what-
putting stuff back.
With the budget amendment that was done in January,
We're doing an amendment
We
to that
took-
budget.
right, but there is no money left in the budgeted funds from the January
Right.
amendment. In order for the expenses to be paid, we do need to have a budget for them, and that's what this is for. It will actually budget money that we can use for the operating expenses.
Second quarter shows a
So, again, the question is, in order for us to operate the facility to its peak potential, in order for it to become a success, hopefully, We need a
Generate
budget.
Revenue, hopefully?
Let's not get into that right now. But in order to try to become a success, to give it a chance, we need to give it a budget so that staff can move on this project, since it's already open, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I think we all
Okay.
agree on that.
okay.
Can we put it to a vote now?
So we have a second.
Do we have a second?
Yes, I second it.
Yes,
Sorry.
So now we get to vote on it. That was a discussion. No other questions? No further discussion? No? Okay. So can we vote on Ms. Carrasco's motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. All opposed? No opposed? So her
So that
motion
means the pool will
passes.
be open. I'm so confused that
It's already open.
it's
trying to
open.
operate
I
it.
know
We're
it's
trying to
open.
operate it.
And
Well-
Mayor, because
It's
this
a
is an
delay.
ordinance, the budget amendment has to be an ordinance, I do need to read
Yes,
for the
sir.
record.
Absolutely.
Council has just passed an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2016-2017 budget to add the changes that are contained on the summary of proposed budget amendments that were attached to the council packet.
Thank you, council. We'll move ahead as directed.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, Andy, so when will the pool be open? I mean, it's now open, I know, but
Well, that's on the agenda item.
Okay, so agenda item number 6, deliberate, consider, and take any action necessary regarding recommendation from Alice Parks and Recreation Board regarding the naming of the park or parks, including but not limited to: A, establishing process and procedures by the city council for receiving recommendations; B, evaluating and establishing criteria; C, allowing for public input and comment; and D, confirming the park name by resolution of the city council. So at this time,
I believe that Mr. Tyler has a comment to make on that.
I spoke with the family, and on item D, request that we don't go forward with that.
okay, but if there's somebody else that maybe would like to speak for someone else, could they come up
Well,
at this time?
Actually, what the agenda is, confirming the park name by resolution.
And it has,
Allowing for
understanding
public
was-
input and comment?
If, it is,
I think it was a procedure
well,
that would allow for
it
that.
does cover procedures.
But there's no
And if-
particular
if we
name
want to
attached to
discuss-
it.
If you want to deliberate, yeah, there's no name.
There's no name attached. So at this point, we can ask for our public to come up and speak on behalf of anyone that they would like the park named after. Am I correct?
Right, but we are limited to just the procedures that we want to adopt
Yes.
Okay.
for future use.
Okay.
To discuss procedures to adopt for naming future parks, correct?
yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not having
We took
someone
that
come
out.
up and make a suggestion for a park, because then we'd be
That's-
violating the TOMA.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. It's simply to discuss how we want to approach the problem in the future.
Okay.
good.
So can we
Thank you.
Okay.
discuss?
Who's speaking to this one?
It was a matter of a recommendation that came from the advisory board of the Alice Parks and Recreation. From this point, all that I had was a specific name for a specific park, and that email that the attorney received kind of squashes that.
Okay,
So
well, I guess I was asking more along the lines of A and B.
B.
You know, establishing a process and creating some kind of a criteria, because right now there is nothing at all. And we want to give our community the opportunity to come forward and do that. So I would ask that we make a recommendation for the city manager and staff to begin the development of this process so that we can have a policy or procedure in place so that when it comes to this again, that we can have a proper way to make sure that it's done and that everybody concerned, you know, the community is involved. So that's all I ask.
Okay, sir. My recommendation is you appoint the Alice Parks and Recreation Board. This was something that they brought up. Their liaison, Joshua Flores, works with them. They have meetings, I believe, with the amount of work that the city manager's office has, if this could be a project for them to do and bring to council, I would recommend that.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Awesome. Okay.
Would that be something that we would make a motion and act upon, or would that be something that we could ask the city manager to delegate and pass down to the board?
Says take
It
any action
it doesn't
necessary.
need a formal motion, resolution, or order. I think the city manager understands.
Perfect.
The council's desires.
Okay,
That's perfect.
very good.
And I will work with the Parks Department on getting it into an ordinance form.
So do we not act on this agenda? Don't we have to act on it?
We,
I mean, it's an
Well,
action.
it is an action item if you want to adopt procedures. If you want to act on it, you may, but you don't have to. My understanding is council is largely in favor of working with Parks and Rec to
Right.
come up with a procedure that's fair to all, and
Yeah, so there's
So
no
would
action
that-
necessary right now,
you
correct?
don't have to act on it if you don't want
So
to.
what happens to this agenda?
They-
Bring it back?
They go and they
We
create a
can bring it
process,
back.
policy.
We can
We
table
bring it
it.
back?
What I envision, Ms. Moran,
I'm
is
just
that
confused.
we will have something drawn up, present it to you for action, or consideration.
Oh, okay.
But it'll be in written form.
Oh, I guess, because I was looking at it as an action item, and then I would have made a motion to direct this, through the city manager, to direct the Parks and Recreation Board to create some policies and procedures, and
Well, that's what
to
I
bring
asked.
And
back.
if
That's
you'd
what
like
it
to
would
make
be.
that.
Yes, with,
I'd
That we
like
didn't
to
have
make
to.
that motion. I'm sure that's my understanding of what was going on, so we
I
can
just
do it
didn't know
that way.
what we needed to do with this.
I think we're good.
Leave it
So
alone?
we're good?
No,
Yeah.
Mayor and council, I recommend that you take
We make a motion, and that way it's already done.
That way it's
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would.
Okay.
Go
solidified.
ahead, I'll entertain a motion.